Thank you for listening. I'm gonna, the next one is persistence. I'm gonna let Baley talk about that. So, Baley, you're up.
Hello. Assistance comes in lots of different forms. So we're helping the helpless, somebody who needs our help or who has no way of helping themselves. We want to care for the abandoned and the fatherless. So we look at the unborn as abandoned when they're aborted, and we look at them as fatherless when they're left, because you still have a person. Even though they've been aborted, there's still this person. If we think they're a person when they're inside the body, they still are. So we got to find out ways to help them. We also need to find out ways to help the people who were put into those situations, right? So oftentimes when I go out and do agitation, my mind is in one direction, thinking that I'm going to talk to a certain type of people. For example, if I'm at Planned Parenthood, I think I'm going to be talking to people who are going in for an abortion. Or if I'm in front of a school, sometimes I think of kids that might be thinking about an abortion. But oftentimes, somebody will come out of the blue, and it's somebody who already has had an abortion. And so sometimes you'll have people that come into the mix that you don't even realize is hitting their heart that day when you're out. And so those are the people that we want to help as well. The people who have had to go through it, the people who are thinking about it, the people who are going through it right now. There's all sorts of different angles. So when you think of assistance, I'm just going to give you one example today, but try and think of all the different ways, because it's not just the baby and just that mom at that moment that's involved. So there's lots of ways you can get involved. Like we said, it doesn't have anything to do with the signs all the time, which is showing compassion to those caught up in this culture. So we want to identify when possible, but help those who have aborted to find forgiveness and healing in Christ. So, like I said, when I started, and most of the time when I go out, I'm thinking of somebody who's going to maybe be in the active process of aborting, but I found that my heart has really transformed into those people who have it in their past, who have aborted in the past, and have been just stuffing it and stuffing it and stuffing it because they think that they just did it and it's okay and they've moved on. Because most often they don't have Christ in their life, and so they don't know how to bring that up in order to repent and ask for forgiveness. So my heart's really been turning to those people. So we need to stand up for Christ, be willing to speak out in all the ways of our life, and then be willing to help those that have not been destroyed and yet born into a life of neglect and abuse, which is where I come in with foster care. Woo. I didn't think that was going to happen. So my husband and I have done foster care for about 6 years, and we've done it just in our local area here in San Luis Obispo County. I love it. I love all of those kids so much, and so they have all been born into a culture of who knows if they were wanted or not when they were born, but they're here, and they need that same love that we have all experienced and had. And so you can do foster care, you can do adoption, you can mentor the moms, the dads too. I've never heard of the father mentoring program. That would probably be an awesome thing. There's actually a new program that I'm really excited about. I'm just sharing about this that's coming up in the county. They have healthy moms who have had their kids returned back to them now, who are now working for the county to be able to mentor those moms. So it's not just the foster moms that are doing the mentoring now, it's the moms who have been through it, and I just think that's precious. There's always financial help and emotional help. If you are Physical help, if you have a home that has extra bedrooms, extra beds, you don't have, in Cayucos it doesn't happen very often that you don't have company, but if you don't have company very often, that's another avenue. If you're willing to open up your home, that if we hear about somebody or you hear about somebody who's in a situation, because oftentimes if they do choose pregnancy, then even their family, abandons them. So that's another route, just physically providing them a shelter and an escape place where they can feel loved. So it's almost like fostering, but I think of it more for the moms or the teens too. And then spiritual counseling and care. And these things all come in the fostering too. So now I'm just going to tell you about my personal foster experience. And hopefully it'll just give you some ideas or give you a feel for how it goes. This is just, again, one idea of assistance. So my husband and I went from having no kids to having 3 kids overnight. And I know for some of you that's not that many, but we went from no kids to 3 kids overnight. And so our first sibling, we wanted to do sibling sets, and so we fostered 3 children together. And those kids, so that was our very first foster experience. And they were from 2 to 8 years old, and they were lived with us for about 8 months, and then they were returned home to their mom. At the time, I did not think that that was a healthy situation, but we have been able to maintain contact with them. And I see them about every 6 months, and we still have sleepovers with them. We still go to their baseball games. We've been invited to baptisms and the wedding and all sorts of stuff. So it is not something that I take lightly, in that I only am just taking care of them physically when they're in my home. It is something that I've taken on as a life role, that I want to see those kids get married. And so I think it's really important to know that all these experiences that we're doing right now, we may or may not see the results. I'm fortunate enough, and I pray that I can continue to see their results. But we may not see those results. But it sure is fun when we get to. And we just need to know that it doesn't end in the now. When we see somebody, you've heard, you're planting the seed. Yes, we're planting the seed in every single thing we're doing every single day. Every single person, every single sign, every single shirt, every single conversation that we have about all of this, it's all planting a seed. And we don't know where it's going to go. The next child we had in our home, we had one boy, and he's an example of, I don't know anything about what's going on in his life, but I know that the time he was with us, we were planting seeds. And he was a really, really tough child who I just had to accept that I got to love him for a season. He was only with us for about a month and a half. And I was only our second placement, so I was very new at foster care. And I couldn't handle the situation and the circumstances that were there at that time. And so I had to make the decision to ask him to be removed, which is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But I still have confidence time later and after relaxing over it and praying with God that God was in that, and that time that we had together was meant for a purpose, and that we did what we could do during that time. Then we had 2 kids. One of them, so they were 8 and 10, and one of them was 24-hour care. She was in a wheelchair. She needed braces to help her walk. She used crutches to help her walk and everything. She was a full-time job. But those 2 were eventually adopted. And so I've got to see kids returned home to their parents. I've seen another child move on to other foster homes. And then these other 2 children, I got to see them be adopted by another family. All this just to show you that You never know which angle it's going to go to. Your heart is completely out there from the moment they come into your home, because if you start doing foster care, you obviously have a love for children. And so they become yours. They become your own kids right away. And your heart is totally with them. So these two that I got to see be adopted, it was wonderful to see them be adopted into a special home, and more comforting knowing that they were going to a caring home and a caring place and a Christian home. Then we got a little mohawk wherever he's at, and we got him at 3 days old, and we have been blessed enough to be able to adopt. And so we had adopted one time as well. And then we moved away for a few years. And so now we're back because we want to get back into foster adopt again. So we actually just this last week have had the social workers out and have been setting all that up again because we had moved counties. And so we're getting all that cleared up again so that we can be ready to go again. Foster parents are needed everywhere. There's never enough foster parents. The kids need love and security that they may never have even ever felt before. This, as a foster parent, you may be their first real attachment and caring and love and safety net that they've ever had. Some facts now. You're only allowed 6 children in your house. So that includes bio children. So some people are already out of that qualification. But so you can have 6 children in your home, and you have to have enough beds for them to all have their own bed. There's no bed sharing. The paperwork process is not easy. I will be absolutely honest with you. It's like signing for a house, when you're buying a house, there's a ton of paperwork. But in our county, I don't know about other counties, but in our county, they've really simplified the very first initial course that is state required. And in that initial course, they now have included all the fingerprinting and the health screening and the background checks, all that kind of stuff. They do all within the course now, which is great because it saves you a lot of extra appointments. And the county doesn't even know that I'm talking today about this topic. This is all just completely from my heart. But I do know that, and I'm telling you these things so that if you can't take on kids, there's just other options too. You could always host an info training, which would be, so that people can understand if they're interested in fostering or if they just want to hear about fostering, that they can pass on the word. You can always host an info training or recruitment, and people from the county will come out, or they'll send somebody, a foster parent out. You could provide meals for new foster placements in your area if you know people that are foster parents and you just want to, set up with your church or whoever a list of meals to help people out, when they get a new placement. There's a lot going on when you get a new placement, especially emotional-wise, so it would help the mom sometimes when that happens. You can offer skills to prepare homes, like a home like us who's just getting licensed. Is sometimes they don't know anything about what's expected, or it could be a relative caregiver. So if a child is being fostered into a relative's home, they don't know what's expected by the counties. And so if you know or you have special skills that you think could help prepare that house, then that would be a good thing. As far as areas around water, gating and fencing, areas on if there's patios or stairs, you gotta have proper railings that are good for the kids. So, you just do simple things like put in the proper smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors and all that kind of stuff. So there's just little things that add up that you don't even realize. And, maybe even going out and buying the smoke alarms and the fire extinguishers and all that kind of stuff for somebody. So these are just ways that you can help. And then the other one that I think is really important that nobody ever thinks about, but if you know somebody who's fostering, respite or a break is something that foster parents, just like all of us who want to be with our kids all the time, never think about. And it's really easy for foster parents to get burned out because it's not their children. So even though they love them right away, it's not their children. And so things can be more exhausting. And because of all the extra stuff thrown on top of it with the parent reunification and all the extra doctor appointments and stuff like that, you're required to do all these certain doctor appointments, not just regular checkups like we're used to doing, in order to make sure that the kids even have a medical record. Some of them don't. So respite care to just take the kids for a day or an afternoon or an evening or something like that is really, really helpful and beneficial. So I hope this has been encouraging, that if it's not on your heart or somebody who it might be something that they've been talking about, that you just encourage them, because there are just never enough foster parents. So thank you very much, and I look forward to serving with you.